Hey, this is Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS and with another Random Thoughts podcast. The ominous, the status of everything. Going to be talking about the status of the channel. This is my personal status. Status of the MCU, status of Doctor Who, status of Sonic, status of DC, Star Trek, you name it. I'm going to kind of try to talk about it. And I really want this one to be an interactive one because I really am hoping to get some feedback and response from you guys for going forward. I've always said that this is my therapy, and I want to keep true to what I do, but I also want it to be something that people enjoy. And if there's something that people just, what you're doing there isn't interesting, but this over here that you're doing is really interesting, do more of that. I'd like that feedback. I also I'm going to express some of my thoughts about how I'm feeling about some things and whether or not you guys even want me to cover some of this stuff or continue doing some of the stuff I'm doing because of that. So let's, right out of the way, I got COVID. And today was my first day back to work after having COVID. And I've got to tell you, I thought, because I'm one of those guys that gets sick for like a couple of days and I bounce right back. And I honestly thought that, I have to wait this certain period of time before I can be out with the public, but I'll be on the couch with COVID for a couple of days, and then I'll be out here just like recording videos left and right, doing thumbnails, clipping all my videos for my shorts channel that like where I do my clip highlights from the show. For those people who don't want to listen to a whole podcast, which primarily I did that so that the other podcasters, because I know when you're a podcaster, you don't always have time to listen to all of the podcasts, especially when, Red 5 Network, what is it, 47 podcasts, 37, I can't, it's hard to keep track anymore. I listen personally to over 60, so that have at least a podcast a month. So, that's a lot to keep up with. So I like clipping those out when I'm specifically talking about a highlight from another podcast so that I have something shorter, that little 10-minute video that I can share with them, and I don't have to go, hey, I talked about you on this podcast, it's an hour long, you're in there somewhere for 10 minutes. I thought I'd get that stuff done. See, I'm rambling. There's Random Thoughts and Rambling Podcast. That's what I do. I have to say that while I find it hard to get the time to do it, my funnest videos that I do are my podcasting, because that is what feels the most to me therapeutic. One of the most time-consuming videos that I do that I really enjoy is my top 10s. And I haven't done one of those in a long time just because I put a lot of, I'm not going to say I put a lot of editing because I do no pictures, like all these people that do so much superior top 10s, but like I do research, and I really got that bug from being on the Science Fictionary podcast and watching how they did their pillars of sci-fi and stuff. And so that really made me go into like, like if I was doing a top 10 Stargate of this year, like I would watch all the episodes of that year. I would like start reading about some of the background of the episodes, some of the different things, making sure I was correct on the lore. When I'm doing top 10 90s cartoon, something like that, like I going in depth, making sure I'm not missing something I love. And then I just go down a rabbit hole, and some of those lists I'll put over the course of a couple weeks, I'll put 10 or so hours together compiling the list to then go over for a 20-minute video, but with no editing, none of the presentation level of like the research level that I put into it, because I am not skilled at all that video rockery. And it's funny, I seem to have time to do this research, but not time to take an online course or watch some YouTube videos. It just goes over my head. I am a very practical learner. So it's one of those things, like if I had somebody sitting down with me and walking me through it step by step, like watching a video and then doing, like if I had somebody say, okay, now go there, click that, okay, do this, I would learn stuff. So like one of these days, you know, I'm going to visit some of you in person. I'm going to be like, just sit down with me for a half hour and have me edit something on your software rig, and maybe I'll buy the stuff and learn to do it. But I'm not there. But so I got COVID, and the funny thing is, my wife is immune compromised. She got it first. She got back from her trip from New Orleans, and her phone notified her she got exposed at the airport here in California. So now her whole trip there, she got exposed in the airport, and sure enough, like 3 days later, she's got COVID. She had COVID for 2 days, and then she's over it. And we're shocked. And then I start coming down with symptoms. And then I have 12 hours straight, I can't get under 103 temperature. I'm popping stuff to reduce my temperature. Nothing, no effect. Really bad. Next day, once that broke, I was feeling a little bit better. You know, so I was like, the next day, okay, you know, that's the worst of it. And then about, you know, a day and a half later, then all of a sudden, I just, ooh. And what happened is, you have the main thing of COVID, but COVID opens you up to like bronchitis, all this different stuff. So I got garbage and this and all that. Just woo, couldn't stand, could barely get out of bed, just couldn't do anything, couldn't function. It was that way for days. My daughter kind of got a much lighter version of that. She was coughing up all the garbage and nasal congestion and all that, having trouble sleeping at night. But she did not get the tiredness, because that's the biggest thing with COVID. You get tiredness. She didn't have that. She was a little wind-up toy. So thankfully, my wife's not down. Then, as I'm getting better, my wife, big shout out to Lunar Girl. She had this, because I was kind of under the impression, or what I had been told early on, is if you're sick, you know, get tested, but don't go down to the emergency room. Don't go down to the urgent care. Don't give all the other sick people COVID. There's no treatments. That was something I didn't realize stuff had come up with that. And so I started doing some little research online. And I'm looking at what they're saying online, and they're still not really saying to do that. Like, what they were saying was the remedies, and they said the most they're going to do for you is give you prescription strength Mucinex. So I was just taking Mucinex. Come to find out, it's not a treatment for COVID, but it's a treatment for the other stuff you get from having COVID. And, you know, the bronchial ammonia-like infection in your lungs and stuff, which is what I was dealing with, and the sinus infections. So antibiotics, steroids, all that. Lunar Girl had mentioned that's what helped her, so that's what I went and got. I'm back to work. I feel much better. So then, unfortunately, at that point, my wife catches all the garbage. So she got over the actual COVID virus super fast and was testing negative again, and was it good? But then she caught this garbage, and she's immune compromised. So now she's dealing with that. So, you know, keeping her in my prayers, and appreciate all the positive thoughts that everybody have been giving me. So that's going on. Before that, though, something that had slowed down on my channel was I was dealing with just a lot of stress over tax time. I knew I owed a lot. I was behind on my paperwork. One of the things that I did last year was right at the end of the year, I bought a new computer so that this year I won't have that. Everything will be entered in the computer as they go. And I got one of those like tablet computer Microsoft Surface Pro things. I did a video of poorly unboxing it. And that has helped immensely at that. That has helped me not be up at late at night. But I had so much, just boxes and boxes of stuff for my business from last year that needed to be entered into a computer. And tax time approaching. And then I was having everything imaginable happening. The well quit, had to repair that, had the water heater quit, had the washer and dryer quit, had a horse run through the fence and break the fence with my brand new neighbors who just moved in a couple months before. Just the front power gate, everything and anything was gone. Family members in and out of the hospital, all sorts of stuff. And so all this to say, been crazy. And then just when I got news of how much I owed and everything was crazy, talking about, I usually don't, I keep the nerdy stuff from the spiritual stuff separate. So this is kind of my nerdy escapism. But, the power of prayer, we had a squirrel. That's what I was going to say. Chicken. It's a squirrel. A squirrel get in my wife's car. Now she came home. 2 hours later, I took it to the store, and that little squirrel did like $1,200 worth of damage to that car and that time. So I had that. I had the money we owed. We had all this stuff was happening all at once, and we're just like, there's no way. There's no way we're going to pay for all this. All this just expense after expense. My locksmith license, which was $500, coming up. I had a warranty job that I had to do that ended up paying out some out of pocket. Just thing after thing after thing. I had somebody who had prepaid for a remote, and they didn't get it for 10 months. They came and picked it up. I said, yeah, sure, I'll come out and do it. And then there was something wrong with their car's computer, and I couldn't program it. And they completely prepaid for the thing, and so I had to refund them that. It was for a Subaru thing, and it was an expensive remote. And I'm like, just all this stuff happening all at once. I was actually reducing my Patreon in some accounts. I was canceling some of my streaming services, just looking for what really isn't a necessary expense that I need to cut. And, was praying about it. And then I had a job that is a job or a contract that was way, way bigger than what I handle. I have always been the small guy that handles everything, all the little guys. I never like to do a job that takes me more than a day. I usually don't like to take a job that even takes a half a day. I do those occasionally. That takes me a day or a half a day, or sometimes where it's a big project that I got to go a couple of days, over a couple of weeks. But typically, I try to avoid that. I like to be available for the small guy, and typically, I make more money that way. When you get a big bid, and it looks like this big, huge number, but it's like, okay, that big, huge number, if it takes you 20 days to make that big, huge number, well, how much would you normally make in a normal day as a locksmith? And a lot of times, I make a lot more than that. My typical day, I've got to make somewhere between 300 to 400 before I'm making any profit. That's just being out here in California. The cost of my vehicle, the cost of my insurance, my licensing, bonding, all those things that you have to have to run a business, tires on my vehicle, gas, that. So even if I don't show up to work, my cost for the day for the business is probably about $300. It's one of those things where, okay, if you do a job that's going to take you 20 days and you're going to make $400 every one of those days, and it seems like a big number, but if you were normally going to make $500 or $600 running around doing little quick jobs, you actually lose money. It's steady money. You could have days, some of those days you could sit around and have no calls and lose money that way. So it's one of those things. You're paying back the balancing act of having steady money versus really making money, because you're barely above your break-even point with that. So and then you lose customers. You have people call and you're losing that, and it just comes a hassle. So this is kind of a locksmith update. So I have all this money I owe, and I have somebody calling me, and I'm praying I need money, and I have a regular customer for me in the county called me up and said, we need you to do this. We've been having you do this project, and you've been doing one every 3 months for the last 5 years, and you've gotten like this little section over here, but who's paying for this is about to switch. It's about to start coming out of the county's actual checkbook, and we have this much money that has to be spent by the end of July, and this is one of the projects we want to get done. Upgrading all these locks. Now these are on, housing for low income, and they're putting military grade, the stuff that's on the airbase. They're putting that on these people's front door. And, the county's idea is if we put durable, tough stuff, they're going to last. And granted, the locks that are on there have been on there for 30 or 40 years. They're not even broken. They're just having me replace it because the money is there. And they're having occasionally ones break, and it's not in their month-to-month budget to replace it, because these are like $500 locks. So, they're 100. Well, not 500, but these locks cost over $100 a piece. They're expensive commercial grade locks. You've got, if you start piecing that out and having this one here, this one there. So they want me to do 77 of these units. I've been doing about one every 3 months. Now they want me to do 77 of these units in 3 months. Wow. That's way more. Nope, sorry, can't handle it. Pass it off to one of my competitors. Find out that competitor is actually selling the business in the process. So they're the main one that would handle that kind of work. And the county has an account with them too. They said no. So I said, well, you can try these people. They all said no. We've been in business with you for over 30 years. You have been our main go-to one. We want you to do it. You've got to help us out. And I'm like, this is too big for me. And so, I'm praying for it. I'm praying. And this is about triple. All these massive bills I have, this is about triple what I know. And I got to thinking, I can't do it. It would run my business in the ground if I took this on. So then I said, what would it take? My old manager, he's retired, but he's maintained his license. What would it cost to 1099 him? And they tell me, you'd have to get a year certificate of workman's comp. Look into that, get that all taken care of, talk to him, figure out what he'd want. What he wanted seemed very reasonable. I put a markup on that. Of course, once he started getting paid, he was like, wow, that actually works out to a lot more than I thought. Are you sure that's okay? And I said, no, that's okay. I made sure it was above. I made sure that when I did this, I was not shooting myself in the foot. I'm like, everything can go wrong. I made that number high enough because they came back and they were begging me, please do this. We need you to do this. Nobody else is willing to do this. And so I thought, okay, I'll do it for this price. And they didn't even bat an eye. I got the bid. That has helped me. Of course, I'm 3 weeks into that, and I get COVID. And the guy that I have helping me, he had pre-told me, hey, I got 2 weeks, I got to go on vacation. So he's on his vacation. I'm not doing anything because of COVID. And I got a bunch of other jobs that are backing up. So he's going to come back, and we're going to need to be doing more than that. It's been crazy. But I've also had the financial stability to not be working while, while I've had COVID. So it saved me there. That said, because all of this was going on prior to COVID, I had realized I didn't have time to record videos. I didn't have time to put together top 10s. I didn't have time to be doing podcasting. I was just always busy. And I decided to start using the short feature because that seemed to be a popular way to get a lot of views. And I noticed that when I did a short randomly here or there, they were getting a ton more views than my regular videos. So I thought I'd do more of that. I think that was a mistake. Maybe the shorts are good for And this is where I want some feedback. Maybe the shorts are good for when I'm doing a review of a trailer, or like a reaction to a trailer, which I haven't figured out how to like put it up and do that whole thing. But just my brief 1-minute thoughts about a trailer that I saw. I think it works good for that. But reviewing weekly episodes of TV shows, once I started one, I felt the need to keep doing it. I did Book of Boba Fett. It really brought me down, just talking about Boba Fett. I did Moon Knight. It really brought me down talking about Moon Knight. I did not like Moon Knight. I started Kenobi. I just, it's one of those things where I have never been a person who's negative. And I've never wanted to have a negative channel. And when you've got 1 minute and you overall didn't like the episode, it is hard to convey any positives while also coming across. Now, I don't know, maybe my quippiness in it and stuff like that, people thought that was fun. So let me know. Like, did you enjoy my Moon Knight? Did you enjoy my Halo, my Boba Fett? Now, I haven't even released them all. I've recorded them all, but I had a whole bunch, and while I was done with COVID, I didn't even have the wherewithal to like log into YouTube, create a release schedule, and like put all the tags and stuff in them. So I don't even know if I finished Moon Knight or Halo. I didn't think I released any of the Kenobi. I didn't. So that brings me to my other thing. I'm feeling a bit negative, and I wanted to talk about that. So I'm usually one, like, I watch the CW shows, not all of them, but because they've really been going downhill. But I watched The Flash, I watched Arrow. I'm watching Superman and Lois. They're not great TV, but they're okay TV. I enjoy a lot of things that people don't. And I felt for quite some time like I was the guy screaming and yelling and defending the MCU. I was not super offended by Falcon and the Winter Soldier like it seemed like everybody was. Everybody was so upset about the whole Captain Do Better, and it's like, yeah, do better. I'm right there with him. Loki wasn't anything amazing, but I didn't feel like it's like Loki's a villain. I liked him getting kicked while he was down. It was just kind of, it's how the show was. It was fun, and he's a great actor, so he plays it out well. I loved WandaVision. Shang-Chi is amazing. Right now, it's sitting in my top 5 MCU films. Now, we'll see when time goes by and I do some rewatches, if it stays there, or if, like, Iron Man bumps back up and knocks it out, or something else. So I had these things, and I always felt like I was defending Marvel, and I was defending Star Wars. And my friends were like, I don't know, because they were so upset about things like Captain Marvel and The Last Jedi that they can't see anything good anymore. And that bugs me. It's like everybody comes in with a super critical eye, and it's like, you know what? 10 years ago, if I would have given you that movie, you would have loved it. It is only in this current culture that now never can we have a female superhero without it being MCU. Never can you have, a main character have a character flaw without, it's tearing down a man. Everybody is so raw right now. So raw. And if physics are silly, or it's comic book movies, it's Star Wars, they drop bomb, like some of the complaints that people like just latch onto are just silly. They're just silly. To the point that when I even don't like something, I start defending it. Just because of like some of the ridiculousness of the hate. So, here's just some examples of things that I've felt negative about lately. Book of Boba Fett, Eternals, Moon Knight. Did not like Moon Knight. Halo, very mixed. Doctor Who, The Batman. Yes, the movie that everybody universally praises. I'm not a fan of it. Kenobi. I really liked the first episode, 2 episodes, especially the second one. There were some things in there that were questionable, but overall, I was enjoying it. Episode 3, the way it ended. Sonic. You're thinking, what? You love the Sonic movie? Yeah, I did. Everything about Sonic Frontiers, the upcoming game, the way it's been announced and released, been very negative on. So, I've already kind of talked about Boba Fett, Eternals, Moon Knight, Moon Knight, Eternals, these different things with the MCU. I have a big concern about the MCU as a whole. And my concern is that I really enjoy the MCU. I do think that there are room for these other stories, but one of the things that I feel is the MCU is going to need a reboot. Because they're trying to continue on in the world, in the shell that they made, and they're trying to expand in too many ways. One, they're bringing in, they did a very good job of, and I'm very fond of how they did the concept of magic in the MCU. I am somebody who likes science fiction. I am not a fantasy guy. Of course, I love stuff like Stargate and Doctor Who and stuff that does all this, and it's always an alien and it's actually technology. I love that kind of concept. And the concept that they did, like Asgard and Thor and all these people, they're really other dimensional beings or aliens on another planet. Like, they're coming from other planes, but it's all just science. They're working on principles that we don't understand. They reaffirm that in Doctor Strange. They bring in the guy who's like in the Marvel Universe, like the master of magic, and they pretty much explain, hey, it's all science-based. What is this? And so, for me, that was something I really appreciated. Eternals kind of followed that thing, but Moon Knight kind of went way weird. And then you see in Thor: Love and Thunder, we're getting into the Greek mythology, and so we've kind of got some of our Roman, our Egyptian, and our Greek mythology between Eternals and all this. We know with Black Panther, they're going to go a bit more into the African, Panther god mythology. All of a sudden, you have this big buildup of Endgame. You have all these things that are happening, these world-ending things, and none of these gods stepped in. None of these beings of immense power, however you look at them, whether you look at them as magic or that, but I noticed that they're less and less drawing that line. They're making it more of the mystical, which is not something I read. And I haven't seen Multiverse of Madness yet. I know a lot of people are upset about that. I actually have a feeling I'm going to like that movie. Because I hear what people are complaining about it, and it sounds cool to me in a lot of ways. But there may be other things that people don't complain about that will completely turn me off. Who knows? It seems to be how it goes. But this concept of they're adding in all these other elements, all these other characters, and they're throwing a lot of multiverse. And that's one of the things, is they're going in so many directions. Are we getting the Thunderbolts? Are we getting the Dark Avengers? Are we getting the Young Avengers? Are we getting, all these other teams? And we're like, oh, we're going the mystical route. Oh, we're going the multiverse route. Oh, we're going to do a lot more space. We're going to get Secret Wars and all that. And we haven't even gotten mutants. We know the Fantastic Four are coming. We know the X-Men are eventually coming, but it's going in so many directions, whereas the MCU, even when it had something that felt a little bit more off to the side, like Guardians of the Galaxy or Ant-Man, they were ultimately rounding back into the story and a part of it. And right now it feels like there's 5 or 6 different endpoints. Like there's all these team-up movies that they're thinking of, that they're going to have, and they're going in all of these directions. And some of the Netflix characters might be back, so maybe the Defenders are going to come back, and then so we're going to have the Defenders, the Thunderbolts, the like all of these different things instead of just an Avenger. And so it's going to be like, okay, are we going to have like a standalone superhero movie and a team-up superhero movie every year? Because if we're building up to all these things, and we're all the standalones going to be TV shows, and all the movies are going to be the together team-up movies. Because that's where it feels like it's going, and that is just really convoluted. If they're all going into other big climactic things, because I don't see this like building up to a Galactus, or because you got all this mystical, but you got all this mystical and multiverse, and it's just going in a lot of directions. Now, on top of that, with What If, I loved What If, but they made that the first official canon MCU cartoon. And there's going to be more canon MCU cartoons. I already know from Star Wars, there's a ton of Star Wars fans that will not watch a cartoon. So I know the exact same thing is true about the MCU. There's going to be tons of people who won't watch the cartoons. And there is definitely in What If context for Multiverse of Madness. I just know that from the trailer, because I've seen What If, and I've seen the trailers for Multiverse of Madness. Then you have the concept of like Miss Marvel. We're going to have a PG show. This is a Disney Afternoon XD show. Superhero, and they have those. That's what this is. But it's eventually going to tie in to the next Captain Marvel movie. And admittedly, I'm a big Captain Marvel fan. I liked it when that Carol Danvers used to be called Miss Marvel. That's kind of the run I like. That's definitely not what they've gone with. I don't like the attitude they gave her. But I am a fan, and I was really hoping that, and I'm one that I don't care what the actor says. Like, everybody's all worried about what she said in an interview. If I cared what actors said, half the actors in the world, like, I wouldn't watch a Tom Cruise movie. That guy says whack stuff all the time. I love Mission Impossible movie. Why? So I don't consider any of that. Like, people who are like, oh, I really don't like Mark Ruffalo it's the Hulk. I really like the guy that was in before. And I'm like, no, that movie wasn't great, and his acting was super wooden. Now, Mark Ruffalo is his face, it works perfect with the Hulk. But everybody's upset because of what his politics are. I was like, it doesn't matter. Give me something good to watch. That's what they're there for. They entertain me. What their personal beliefs are, that doesn't matter. You look at the first Thor movies. Thor was super wooden. He was super wooden, and he was being directed that way. And then he got in the Avengers, and they played him up a little more loud. And then after that, the preceding Avenger movies, and then in Ragnarok, he had character, he had charisma, and all this thing about like Captain Marvel, why doesn't she smile and all that? They were specifically giving her direction that, oh, you're tough, you need to be stoic. And then in Endgame, as much as some of the stuff was silly with her, when she's like, hey there, Peter Parker, like the little smirk she gave, like, I like that. I saw a gleam of something like, oh, maybe I'd like it. But now, I'm supposedly going to have to watch WandaVision, which nobody would have thought WandaVision was going to be required for that. And I love WandaVision, but not everybody did. A lot of people watched the first couple episodes and the whole sitcom concept just to get out. Other people loved that, and then the ending that was an MCU, CGI battle, and they go, oh, what a letdown. I'm like, that's how every Marvel movie, like, that's what you go when you watch Marvel. But anyways, so a lot of people didn't care for that. You have a lot of people that aren't going to watch Miss Marvel because it's a movie made for young kids, but that is going to be a character who's going to be thrown into this other movie, probably without proper introduction, because everybody's supposed to have watched the show. I'm not watching the show. It's not made for me. It's not my style. my interest for Captain Marvel 2 as what I feel like I'm one of the few white straight males, to coin the phrase, who's actually interested somewhat in that movie, who was willing to give it a shot, especially as somebody who, was also somebody who didn't like The Last Jedi, who didn't like some things about that movie, but is actually interested. I'm one of the few. I've lost interest in it now because of this other stuff. Moon Knight did not go that dark, by the way. But they were toting it as it's close as already you get, and we've got our content that is in MCU coming up. We're gonna have Blade, we're gonna have Deadpool, and they're gonna be R. And Daredevil's coming back, and it's gonna be an R-rated show. We're gonna port over when they say they were porting over the Netflix shows. My biggest problem with the Netflix shows was, they were not rated. They were definitely in and out of R rating. And it always felt tacked on, unnecessary. A couple of times there was some violence that I could see somebody trying to justify. I mean, I get it. It's shock value more, and it shows how brutal those characters are. But I mean, I don't want to be watching, Power Man, Luke Cage, and then just throwing the N-word around just because the actors are black. I don't want to hear that. I don't want randomly a scene where somebody's just naked because we can. Like, everything else is like just your typical superhero show, and then boom, nudity. No. So I stopped watching those shows. I didn't finish them. They're ported over to Disney Plus, which to me, I appreciated that Disney Plus was the one place where I didn't have to worry about that. And everybody's like, oh, well, they'll put it like the... But here's my biggest problem with streaming, is they've gotten rid of that. And now when you watch Star Trek, there's nudity, there's cussing, there's excessive gore. It's not a family show anymore. And I feel like there's not going to be any family genre shows anymore. I don't have a problem with the next Game of Thrones coming out. And that being super mature and having all that stuff, it's not for me. But I totally get that a lot of people enjoy that. But we always had Star Trek. We had Doctor Who. We had these things. And now there's this big push that everything has to mature, or it has to be dumbed down for kids. And there's no family experience. And and people are pushing for a rated R Star Wars movie. People are pushing for all this stuff. And when you go to streaming and there's not the laws there, like they have on cable network television, suddenly they can do all that. And they don't have to put a rating on it. It can just be not rated. And you can be watching a show. It could be a family sitcom. It could be whatever. And then boom, a couple episodes in, something big, something that is inappropriate for the family, and you don't know it. I don't want to have to screen every show and watch it before I sit down with my family and watch it. I love the fact that if I put on Disney Plus, I know it's for my family. And I know that stuff still exists. And they're differentiating it, like, oh, you have to do this for this kind of content and that, so you can't just accidentally see it. But if they're doing that, if they're adding that layer of content, how many of the new shows they make will start going towards that? Because that is my big problem with Paramount Plus, my big problem with Netflix, my big problem with Amazon, with all of these shows. Now, Apple TV has actually been fairly decent about that, but I do know that they have some stuff that is that. But of what I've watched on there, I've been pleasantly surprised. But Hulu is another one. Hulu doesn't seem as bad, but definitely Netflix, definitely Amazon, and definitely Paramount Plus. Really bad about just adding unnecessary nudity, gore, and language when it doesn't really add to a show. It's just random shock value dropped in the middle of random episodes. They can have whole episodes with none of that, and then randomly put that in there. And then putting it in properties that traditionally have been a family viewing show. Why not make a new show for that? You know, you want to do The Boys, do Kick-Ass, do Invincible, do whatever. Don't be like, all of a sudden, Batman can only be done in R. What? Batman's been done for years, none of that, and he's been done well. You look at the animated stuff, they have done many well, non-R Batman. Much darker than what they do in the show, but there's this weird divide. So anyways, MCU. So now you have this section of the audience that's going to be watching mature content that's supposedly going to cycle back into the next big, Avengers thing. And you have other people that are watching these cartoons or they're watching these teen shows, and that's also going to cycle into this. What's going to happen is these team-up shows, they're not going to have the cohesion. It's not part of the MCU. It was like a TV show but with movies. Every movie was building the picture to the final conclusion, the big season finale. And that was kind of every phase when we got an Avenger movie, and it was like the big season finale. That's not happening anymore. Now we're going off in every which direction. It's like Book of Boba Fett having all these different timelines. And so we're going in different directions. We're going in all these different brackets. And it's losing what makes it simple. My solution? Make the MCU the PG-13 movies with a handful of PG-13 level TV shows. A handful. Not a whole bunch. A handful of well-made TV shows and the movies. And realistically, if we got 2, maybe 3 Marvel shows a year, and they were well-made, and we got 2 or 3 Star Wars shows, and they were well-made, it'd be better. I don't need 4 Star Wars shows and 4 Marvel shows a year. If you did 2 and 2, that's 4, and you made them each 8 episodes. So you got 4. That's 8 months out of the year. That is well worth my subscription, plus all the other cartoons and different stuff as a family man. I think that makes MCU well worth it to get Disney Plus. I don't need mediocre. And that kind of goes to my Star Wars problem. Star Wars on Disney Plus seems to have a budget issue because it costs them more than what they make off of Disney Plus to make those shows. And with Marvel, they're getting a lot of merchandise, but Star Wars merchandise has been in a slump. And The Mandalorian made bank. Why isn't that shown in the special effects of the Book of Boba Fett? They're selling those Baby Yodas like nuts. Why are there episodes in the Book of Boba Fett that look like they never went through the special effects treatment? That just is unacceptable. Don't give me a Boba Fett show unless you can give me a good Boba Fett show. Now, I am okay with 4 Star Wars shows and 4 Marvel shows a year if you're going to do it well. But if you're not going to do it well, don't do it. Do less. If you had 2 amazing Star Wars shows a year, and maybe a Star Wars cartoon or something like that highlight over, and you had 2 amazing Marvel shows a year, you would retain more fans, more people willing to pay for that Disney Plus than putting out mediocre or up down. Like, it has really high moments, but it also has some really low moments that are kind of embarrassing. Star Wars special level embarrassing. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's my big issue. And that was with Boba Fett, is like, that show made me so angry. And hearing the behind the scenes stuff when Favreau and Filoni are talking about it and why they did what they did with Boba Fett, I get what they were trying. They missed the mark. And the other thing is, I think if the mods weren't such a joke in that show, I mean, it just made to look so uncool, so unfinished. I think a lot of the stuff with Boba Fett, we're like, oh, they made Boba Fett. Like, if he just came across stoic and that. But the problem is, the stuff around him looked goofy. And they were trying to show, this different side of Boba Fett and how he'd grown as a character and all that. But there was all this goopy, campy stuff happening around. A lot of it because the special effects weren't there, and they just made Boba Fett look like a joke. And then when you saw that Mandalorian episode come in, and it was at such a huge quality increase, and a whole bunch of their budget was spent on the next episode, the Luke episode with the CGI. And you saw that and you go, okay, these 2 episodes ate up like 80% of the budget, and another 10% went to the finale. And then all the other episodes, that was the other 10% of the budget. That's what it felt like to me. And so when you see that, it's just so disappointing to see Mandalorian go, everybody's like, well, what did you want? We wanted that. And if you couldn't give us that, like Boba Fett did, he could be becoming a good guy, and Mandalorian's a good guy. Respectively, he's relatively good. He's a bounty hunter and all that, but he's, he has a moral code. You can give Boba Fett a moral code. You can have him decide that he's standing up for the town and all that stuff. But make him have action. Make him an interesting character. Kenobi. Oh. We saw Vader just wreck Kenobi. And that's good. He's been cut off from the Force and all that. But you're going to do that. You have to have a good reason for how Kenobi gets away. Because you can't have Vader dominate him like that and then have him just get away. We saw Vader pull him from the other side of the fire. We saw him put the fire out, and the fire gets relit. And it's like, oh, Kenobi's all the way over there. Can't get to him. Could run around. You could force pull him in. You could put the fires out. All this, there's a slow droid doing. They're in the open tundra. There's like literally nowhere for Kenobi to hide. These guys can't catch up to him. He's like being carried by a slow droid, and he's like he's banged up. He needs to go in a bacta tank. All the build-up that they just did with Vader, where he's going through the town and he's snapping necks and through the Force and all that, trying to get a rise out of Kenobi, and it just went away. It just wasn't what we wanted to see, and it just they're giving me so much now, and there's so much on between all these different shows. I'm just not going to watch. Just not going to watch. So I don't want to cover that. The Batman. Everybody's super excited about the Batman. To me, that wasn't the Riddler. That was a Zodiac killer. That was one of the things that I love about Batman. And see, I had this problem with the Heath Ledger Joker too. His villains are colorful. They're a stark contrast between how dark and brooding Batman is. And they seem to feel it's the same thing they've been having trouble with DC in general. Well, Batman's dark and brooding, and that's the most successful thing. So Superman needs to be dark and brooding. Flash needs to be dark and brooding. They all need to be dark and brooding. No, they need to have color. Batman's dark and brooding. That's his thing, but he lives in this universe and his villains need to be a contrast. You have Gotham be dark. You have the whole theme of what's going on. Like what the villains do is dark. But have them be flashy. That's what's scary about the Joker. There are tons of scary psychopaths on Criminal Minds. But what makes the Joker is just how loony and unpredictable he is. How much it's all a big spectacle. If you see the Joker, like the dread that comes over you, because you don't know how he's just going to kill you in the most wacky, messed up way. Think of Jack Nicholson, with the buzzard, like stuff like that. Pulling out the big gun. That's Cammy. That's the Joker. The Joker is like completely twisted and all this, but he's also campy. He's also, it's twisted and sick and all that, but it's also the joke, and he needs to be colorful and that. Not like super conniving and that's not the Joker. The Riddler It should be more about how much smarter he is, how much that and antagonize the Batman. Like, this guy bent on punishing the, it was just not, I didn't like it. And then Batman, you contrast that with a Batman who was laughable. That Batman routinely had other people solve the riddles. He didn't figure it out. He technically, at first, he didn't save the day at first because he didn't figure it out fast enough. The Riddler was beating him at every turn. And then, like he was getting hit with explosions in the face and stuff. And there was a moment like where he moved and the silhouette looked just like Adam West Batman. I almost wonder if they went and digitally edited the nose to make it look like that. Because it was a shadow figure in the background. Some of the things, like the way he takes hits, like somebody hit him over the back of the head with a crowbar and he didn't even move. He didn't even notice it happened. It just, one of those things where it was like, I'm all for campy. Like, I'll watch Batman and Robin. I'll watch it. But when you made the villain, like this super serious Criminal Minds type villain that's, bombs and this and that, and this, he's not the wacky, colorful that, but then Batman's kind of like being a little laughable. I didn't like it. I expect more from Batman. Batman's my favorite comic book here. I expect more from him. Doctor Who has been in bad straits for a while. And Russell T. Davies is coming back. I had very mixed feelings about that because I'm a Stephen Moffat guy. That's my favorite showrunner of the new Who. Russell T. Davies, in my mind, did a number of questionable things, but it was before we were all raw. And I feel like after Chibnall has really just run the show on the ground, whatever he does is going to be a step up, and so he feels emboldened to do more. I'm in a wait and see, but every time they make an announcement about what he's got coming up, it concerns me. And I've just been in this negative place, and it concerns me. So I have a hard time getting excited for upcoming Doctor Who. I know a lot of people were really hoping, let's just get past Chibnall and we'll see what's next. I'm having a really hard time. Halo. Halo is a universe that I have always wanted to be in, but I do not like playing first-person shooters. I don't like playing third-person shooters. I don't really like playing any game when you're walking around as a slow human being. I'm not good at it. I try like Star Wars Battlefront. I walk out, boom, somebody headshots me, I'm down, boom. Halo, same thing. Like, I cannot, the last shooter I was somewhat, well, I was still bad at that, but I actually got good enough to actually enjoy a little bit was GoldenEye on the N64. And that was because it had tank controls. This twin six, my brain doesn't work that way. I can't do that. I like playing games, and I can't do the modern playing games because I can't do the twins. Like, you want to give me Star Fox on the N64? I can control that, love that, play that all day. 3DS where it's got one number, I can do that all day. The moment you give me any type of playing game that has like, oh, this one's where you steer with and this is what you... Nope, I can't do that. These new X-Wing game, I can't do them. I can do the one on the PC, but I can't do this new stuff. So I was really looking forward. And Quan Ha came out, and everybody immediately was like, Quan Ha. I was like, no. I see potential with this character. They made this unique character. Her storyline had zero to do with the plot of the show. Now, mid-season, they changed directors because of COVID. Half of it shot before and after. And I have to say that maybe they cut some episodes, and maybe this new director doesn't like Quan Ha and just like gave her one episode completely dedicated to her, wrapped up her storyline, and didn't tie it into Master Chief at all. It just seemed like a complete waste. And they kept focusing on this character that they did nothing interesting with. And it's why. There were so many gay female characters in the show that were interesting, that they were doing interesting things with. And they kept going to this new character that they made, and it really looks bad. It really looks bad, and I really hate it because, once again, after Star Wars did, the female Asian character wrong with, what's her name in The Last Jedi, and here we are once again. We got an action sci-fi show. We're putting an Asian female in it. I mean, thank goodness for, all of a sudden my mind's drawing a blank. But what's her name who, in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett? Because she does great. Fennec Shand is great. But it's like they're almost they're purposely writing these people badly. And this actress, she can act. But they put her in the show and they write her so poorly. Everybody hates her, and it brings the show down. I'm glad I watched it, but it was a disappointment to see that it wasn't what everybody wanted. Sonic movie, great. The marketing for the recent Sonic games is just atrocious. You're on this huge high. Sonic is top, and the merchandise they're coming out with is amazing. Sonic is doing gangbusters on merchandise, doing gangbusters at the box office. You got the new Sonic Prime show that everybody's getting excited about. So we've got all these things that are like, come on, this is great. The social media team has these live streams on which they go, stay tuned, and the only news we can give you is about some toys we have for sale. But we can't talk about any of the games that are coming up. So come join us for an hour to an hour and 20 minutes while we don't give you the news we want. And I understand that they can't always, but they should have tidbits. And they go dark. They take a season off and then they come the season on, and sometimes the season ends before like the release of the big game. I don't get the planning around this. The live streams don't seem to match with that. They show, they recently had a thing that says, hey, there's going to be a prequel cartoon to the new game. Let's show a snippet clip of that. They showed Knuckles standing in front of the Master Emerald and lightning happened, and that was it. That was your sneak preview. That was like showing Batman with a lightning bolt going back and, aren't you glad about the new cartoon? Wasn't that a neat sneak peek? That was nothing. Knuckles his character model didn't even move. They could have just shared the logo as a still picture and said, announcing that this short is going to be coming. Don't say we have a sneak peek and show us animated lightning. That's not a sneak peek. IGN, the company notorious for saying Sonic was never good. They'll get a new Sonic game and they'll get like the one guy in the office that's a Sonic fan and he'll praise the game and shows a lot of promise and they'll do a preview. And then the game will come out and they get the guy that thinks Sonic was never good, makes that comment, and he just trashes the game. IGN makes fun of people who are fans of Sonic games. So IGN first gets the exclusive whole month-long look at Sonic Frontiers. Not their Sonic Central, not their Sonic live streams. They can't show any of that on there. And what does IGN do? They drop a 30-second trailer. Say stuff's coming. We don't know when. They don't announce when are the dates when stuff's coming. Just, we'll show more. And it's without context, and there's some buggy stuff in that little 30-second blip. And everyone's pulling it apart, dissecting it, spending hours talking about it in live streams. Just dissecting frame by frame of that 30 seconds. Then, like 2 days later, they drop 7 minutes of silent gameplay of them just running around an open world that is barren and devoid of anything. They had a couple of bounce pads, a couple of loopy-loops. No, there was no loopy-loop. A couple of grind rails, a couple of bounce pads, a couple of speed pads. But other than that, it was just this big, open, grassy area. No enemies, no nothing. And everyone was like, that looks barren. That looks boring. And look at all the pop-in of the rails and stuff in the path. this game is going to be a disaster. This is rough looking. Like that. Yeah, the environment's beautiful, but man, the pop-in's so horrible, and there's nothing to do. It's super boring. Oh. Then they make an announcement, a tweet. Hey, in another 2 days, we're going to have 7.5 minutes of combat. Okay. And they have an IGN player. Once again, no voiceover. And he's getting his butt whipped by what looks like a low-grade common enemy. And he's doing that. And then there's this giant colossus that he's battling. And you're like, wow, that doesn't look very Sonic-y. This is... And it's taking forever. So he fights like three enemies in this 7.5 minutes. It's like, is that what this is going to be? Running around big empty worlds, occasionally finding an enemy, and it taking forever to defeat them? This feels just like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but less inspired. And then a couple more days go by, and the internet is just tearing this up. Mind you, Sega is staying silent. They have their own live streams. They can't say anything. We have no news. We got no comment. Their Twitter, we got no comment. Let's share a meme. Let's talk about, new sneakers that came out. It's cool. Wish they wouldn't sell out instantly. Would love to have them. Because Sonic is like at an all-time high right now. And then IGN comes out with their actual vocal review. And they launch it at the exact same time as its own Sonic event. So you got on the Sonic channel, it's like, oh, we're going to be talking about Sonic Prime. We'll do a little bit of Forces. And we're going to talk about Sonic Origins. And we're going to talk about some exclusive Sonic merch and all this stuff coming in at the same time that you're going to actually get answers from IGN about this. So it felt like Sega was like trying to distract people. So we watched this, and the little bit of Forces we got, very little, but we see a boss battle that looks so much more interesting, so much more like a Sonic game, and so much more better looking, less pop-in, everything looks great. And it was like, whoa. But it's like less than a minute. And it just kind of ends unperfunctory. There is no one more thing or a little bit of tidbit. There's like very little information. Just that it's still on track. It's still coming this holiday. Oh, okay. Then IGN drops their trailer. And IGN's trailer basically says, hey, I've had this game. I got to take this footage in this game a while back, and they gave me an early build. So this is nowhere near where the game is now. This is early. This is older. And I see so much potential. There's a lot of things they didn't show off in the video that I like this. And you saw that when I was fighting that boss, I was making, or that enemy, I said, well, it's because there's a parry mechanic, and so it's actually, I was trying to show that when you do this, there's, it's one way to defeat the boss, but there's a risk. Sometimes it's unsuccessful. Or you could do it this way, and you're more successful if you're using this new power-up. And there's a whole menu system with like upgrades, so you can upgrade Sonic's ability, and then this becomes easier and all that. It would have been nice if he had given some of that video commentary of it. If he had released this review and said, hey, I'm going to have extended gameplay released later, everybody would go, okay, he's working with an early build. He recorded this a while back ago. He's already told us, like, this is what's going on, and now this is just extended gameplay to look at. No, this is... And he talked about that he'd only had 4 hours with the game, that there are multiple islands. He talked about the speed levels, which looked awesome, which he didn't show off at all. It's just a huge mess up on the marketing. This game might actually be a great game, but they seem like they're doing everything to make Sonic fans upset about it. And given that Sonic fans have, I know, not wanting to show off too much of a game. ahead of time. And there's a big cry for a demo now. Because gamers now don't want to plop down their dollars until they can experience. Because there have been a lot of Sonic games in the past that have burned them. And they're doing something big, they're doing something new. And I can't even imagine me as a Switch player. This thing's going to run horribly on the Switch. I am dreading that they're going to announce that it's a streamed game on Switch. Because that seems to be a thing now. And then you have Sonic Origins. This game looks to be amazing. The game comes out in like 2 weeks. They still can't show it on the live stream. We can't get some gameplay. We can't. Why? These are remasters of games that are 30 years old. It's not like there's spoilers. It's not like we don't already know what the levels look like. Why can't you show off some gameplay? Why can't you show, like everybody's going like, well, in the previous ones, you couldn't play as Knuckles in this game, even with the lock-on technology, or you couldn't play as Tails in this one, but they did make it so this previously. Will that be changed now? Show us. Well, there's a big question about the whole Michael Jackson thing and Sonic 3 and Knuckles music and stuff like that. Are they remixing or not? They finally answered, said, yes, they are remixing some. Why not share that with us? Share us one of the new tracks. Show off some gameplay of that level being played. Why are they not pushing this? They're putting bulletin points that if you're not paying attention, they're telling us why all this stuff's going to be great. And then they got a cheap version, and then they got a 45 deluxe version. The cheap version is basically a better way to play than buying all the classic games individually, which they're delisting. So it's superior to that. It's a collection, it's all together, but it's cheap. So moms will like it. And then they have the other version that has all the goodies and extras. But then they made all this piecemeals. Like they said, okay, this adds $2, this adds $2, this adds $2, this adds $3. It's not a lot of money. It's not like they're gouging people. But they created this whole big, huge chart. Like an Assassin's Creed game or something like that. And of all these different things you can get. And it's basically going to be, if you're a Sonic fan, you're going to get the $45 bundle. If you're not, you're going to get the $30. We're talking $15 here. There should not be 10 options between 30 and 45 that would all add up if you bought them individually up to like $50. But because you bought them all together, you get marketing. And I like Katie. Katie's really nice. The marketing team is nice, but you know what? They're not cutting it. And I feel like they don't have power. I feel like Aaron Weber used to do stuff and ask for forgiveness. And he knew his audience. And he would do stuff that Sega management wouldn't like. But then it would be super successful. And they go, oh, okay, good job. And guess what? They've moved him up. They've moved him to Japan. He's overseeing other properties that they want to do better. And now that Azuka-san is more directly, you have more direct Japanese control of Sonic. And they're like, we got to clean some stuff up. We got to fix some things. The Sonic brand's broken. And there's a language. And I feel like, oh, we want to do this funny thing. They're having to get proof from this Japanese executive. Like, I don't get the joke. No, we can't do that. We got to keep it a secret. It's a big reveal. No, fans aren't. What do you mean fans aren't happy with Sonic? Sonic is huge. Sonic is big. Of course, fans are happy with Sonic. No, sir. Fans are. I feel like there's this big thing where they can't show, and then they give it to IGN and let IGN say whatever they want, and the social media team who's having a live stream can't even talk about the game. I've been rambling for an hour just talking about things that, and so all this thing, it's just put me in a bad mood, and I feel like I'm going into stuff and already not liking it, and so I don't know if I should keep doing these shorts. I'm not enjoying them. But maybe they're funny to people, but I feel like they're dragging me down. Another thing I will say, first of all, shout out to Joker Voice. His channel is great. His videos are great. I love what he's doing. And you should go subscribe. He's got good commentary on stuff. Don't always agree with him. I definitely don't always agree with him. But I will say, Joker Voice, like, cool it a little bit in the Red 5 chats. Like, that was probably the hardest part about Moon Knight, was listening to all the episodes. And me and Joker Voice didn't like it, but for different reasons. And it just felt like people were trying, who liked it. Sometimes when I don't like something, I like to listen to a podcast of somebody who doesn't. This is one of the reasons why I love, another shout out, Blue Milk Cafe. I really love his podcast because he's just uber positive about Star Wars. And I enjoy that. Because he talks positively about stuff I don't. But he's not talking down to me. And sometimes just seeing how somebody else got joy out of something just makes me feel better. Like, I'm not going to start liking it, but I feel better about it existing in the world. And it's like, it's great that you like that. It's great that you got enjoyment out of that. And I'll never take away somebody who likes the sequel to more power to them. I'm glad that they were able to enjoy it. So I'm going to some of these podcasts, and I'm wanting to get from some of these other people that are really digging Moon Knight. I just want to soak up some of their positivity, because I am not. It felt like they were battling Joker Voice their whole episodes, and I'm right there with you as far as, like, say your piece in the comments, let them respond a little bit, but it's like hour after hour, podcast after podcast, Joker Voice became the champion of all that is wrong with Moon Knight. I think that did me in. So, really love your channel. Definitely go subscribe to him. But, man, buddy, I'm hoping that I'm not in store for the same thing with Kenobi, because I know you're also not liking Kenobi, and it's too much. Okay. Everything's not bad. I have actually had some stuff that I've enjoyed. The Addams Project. That is, to me, that is this generation's Back to the Future. That is just an amazing movie. If you've not seen Netflix's Addams Project, go see it. There needs to be a hashtag to put that in movie theaters. I'm not a movie theater guy. I would go watch this movie. I've already watched a couple of times on Netflix. I would go watch it in theaters. Release that in theaters. It should be a big thing. It is Ryan Reynolds' best movie, hands down. Great acting. It had heart. The little kid that plays Ryan Reynolds has seen way too much of Ryan Reynolds movies that he's not old enough to see, but he plays a perfect young Ryan Reynolds. Mark Ruffalo as the dad. It was great. The dynamic. I cried. I love this movie. Go watch this movie. If you have Netflix, this is something you have. Also, if you have Netflix, while you're there, check out the Lost in Space show. Now, if you're some diehard fan looking for how Lost in Space was and the campy that, it's not that. Don't go in expecting that. This is a completely different show. This is sci-fi, mystery, horror, whatnot. There is a Family Robinson and stuff like that, but this has as much in common with, like, the old 60s TV show as that had with the old novel Swiss Family Robinson. So keep that in mind. That it is a big divergence from that, but that's kind of what this property has been doing. And just enjoy it as something fresh. Don't judge it on that. You'll love this show. You'll love this show. Cobra Kai, great on Netflix. Like, see, these are some Netflix shows that are really killing it. Apple TV's got that new, like, dinosaur documentary. That is amazing. Foundation, mixed on Foundation. It's good in some ways, but as a book reader, the thing. But that brings me to another thing. Isaac Asimov books. Like, I have recently, because of that show, I've been diving into all of Isaac Asimov. I've consumed 5 or 6 of them now. I'm just loving it. And of course, I also went back and read some Jules Verne. I did some H.G. Wells, different. I'm going through reading Dune and these different things. Dune was amazing. Love that. Amazing movie. So I'm getting a lot of nerdy into this. I am going out of what was my mainstream properties that I covered and I looked at. I'm going outside of that. Sonic movie 2, I loved it. I do have some critiques of it, but I loved it, and I love the animated short and the deleted scene. Great. I'm going to do a whole podcast talking just about that movie and everything around that movie. Looking forward to the Knuckles series of this. Good stuff here. My Hero Academia. For all those people who are loving The Boys and Invincible and all that, My Hero Academia is not as dark as those. It's not as bloody and as violent as those. But it is very real, and it does show some of the darker moments of superheroism, and it also shows some of the commentary on superheroes doing it as a career and getting paid to do it and being ranked. Oh, this is the top superhero. And the competitiveness of that. It creates a really good world. And like the whole hero killer arc and stuff like that. I binged that. That was one of the shows that I put on Twitter, like, hey, pick an anime for me, and they picked that. And I binged through that, and I absolutely loved it. If you're burnt out on superheroes, but you've something like Invincible with the Boys kind of caught your fancy, and you want more stuff like that, try My Hero Academia. That's a Japanese take on that. Also, if you're somebody who saw those things, or Watchmen, or those, but they all were a bit too gruesome for your taste, try My Hero Academia. It's definitely not kiddie. I mean, well, that's the thing with anime. Anime will have some kiddie jokes in it, and it'll have a lot of really adult themes. And it doesn't shy away. There is depth there. Get through the first couple of episodes. Deku, the main character, he is a whiny baby, like the first 3 or 4 episodes. And it was like 5 or 6 where like the show just blew my mind, and it completely like opened up. And then I was like, boom, 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 staying up till 1, 2 in the morning watching episodes because I couldn't consume it fast enough. So I give a high recommend to that. I re-listened to the Thrawn trilogy. I wanted to get the new books, but I thought first I'm going to go back. And so now I'm going through a bunch of EU Star Wars books, rekindling that Star Wars love. As Star Wars TV is like failing me, and Star Wars movies are failing me, I'm going back into some of the stuff that I loved. Big Finish Audio. They're killing it with Doctor Who. There's such a huge backlog. I am just enjoying it. One of my favorite Doctors is now the 8th Doctor, the guy from the movie that everybody hates. He was just lambasted. He was always at the bottom of everybody's list because all he had was that horrible movie. And he's now one of my favorite Doctors because they've done so much amazing stuff with so many good things with the Big Finish. Rewatching a lot of the DCAU and the DCAMU. So rewatching, I'd already done Batman the Animated Series, so I was rewatching Superman the Animated Series. And with how much I was not happy with the last couple of DC films, I decided there are 47 animated films, DC's, and so I'm working my way through. I'm about 17 into them. I am loving it. Those are some great stories. Why are the writers for the animated stuff not writing the scripts for the live action stuff? Because they're putting out bangers. Now, I know a lot of this animated stuff is actually like straight adaptations of comics, and it's easier to do that in animation. But realistically, when you look at how different the stories are, it is not a matter of stuff just not translating to live action. And they're doing those movies in an hour and 20 minutes. And we get a 2 or 3 hour movie or 4 hour movie, and we can't accomplish the emotional weight as in a cartoon. I'm sorry. They're failing. DC has some of the most complicated, complex, interesting characters, and everyone's going, Superman's so bland. Batman's just dark and broody. You know, who even knows who the Flash is? You know, and they're comparing it to like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, and like, oh man, Marvel's just got so much more depth to their characters. I'm like, no. I honestly think that DC is the superior product, but yeah, I agree. Well, but now everybody's saying Marvel's cookie cutter. Oh, they're all generic, they're all wacky jokes, and I've always liked the diversity of Marvel movies. I feel DC is very cookie cutter. Everything is dark and broody and this, or it's like super wacky and zany and crude Suicide Squad stuff. I just, no. Bring it back. But I'm just loving the animated movies. So, so now we go to what to expect from my channel. So we've talked about all these different fandoms, my concerns for the future, and what I'm liking, what I'm not liking right now. And so I've got some things that I'm going to do, some Red 5 Network Roundup podcasts. January through May. I'm probably going to throw January and February together. I had the least notes for that, and I was so consumed with certain shows that were being covered. And then every month after that, so do January, February, a March, an April, and a May. Probably by the time all that's released, I'll have a June one, but that's going to come out. My in-depth Sonic movie review, that's going to come soon too. I'm getting back on the bandwagon of more adventures in locksmithing. I have toyed with doing a few of them as shorts. Sometimes I feel like I try to pad out the thing, and I feel like there's not enough oomph to it, and I'm making a 4 or 5 minute thing when there's really maybe a minute and a half. Could I squeeze that story down into a minute, make it a short that's enjoyable, much more impactful, and it's more meaningful as a short? I have 1 or 2 of those that are actually recorded already that I haven't released. So maybe that's the future of shorts on my channel. So that's what I want. What do you want from shorts? Do you want to see like my just reactions to a trailer? Stuff that's like, or some big announcement at a Game Awards or something like that? Do you want me to just, boom, like just about the announcement that got me super hyped and then do a video about the award show or the game show or the whatever, Star Wars Day presentation, celebration, but like, hey, this show was announced and I'm super hyped. Do a short just about that and then talk about it later? Or don't do shorts at all. You don't like shorts. Or, what is it that interests you? I mean, I don't like that format where the phone's that way, and that's how you have to film the shorts. So that, but they get traction. So I need to know from you guys. But more adventures in locksmithing. I know that I get so much praise for that. That's why a lot of people started watching my channel was for that. So I want to bring that back more. I just kind of got burned out. I was like doing them so perfunctory that at such a rapid pace that I got burnt out. And I lost motivation to do that because I had so much other stuff I wanted to do. But they are technically like the easiest thing for me to record and put out outside of these shorts. I want to do a podcast on cartoons during the pandemic. You got Masters in the Universe. You've got Lower Decks. You've got What If. You've got Star Wars cartoons, Visions, all these different things that have happened. I'm thinking Camp Cretaceous. All of a sudden, things are escaping me. This is why I would do research and I'd print them all out on a page. But there has just been tons of adult, Invincible, tons of adult-centered cartoons through the pandemic that's just been great. And I'm looking forward to talking about them. I keep teasing that. That's going to happen. Return of Stargate coverage. I had set out on doing that, and I made my Stargate coverage based on these top 10s, and I want to do more of those. But then I got so sidetracked with watching all these other shows and committing to all this stuff, I haven't been able to do them. So I definitely want to do Stargate coverage. Now, other Stargate fans, or people who haven't Stargate, you're interested in Stargate, what would you like? Would you rather I do short reviews of a classic episode, or do just a review of an episode, or are you looking for more of my doing like the top 10s, or what would you be interested in? More audio drama book reviews. I have actually been consuming these and not having time to do the script writing because a lot of times I'll have to re-listen to them if I don't get the script right away. And I've just been on the ground running doing this. I haven't had the time to write down the notes and my thoughts. And then I have to go to like a wiki to find out what was actually in it so I don't mix it up with another audiobook and I talk about the right things, get all my points down I want to talk about on paper. So what about that? Return of Top 10. So that's what I want to do. These audio drama reviews, I want to make them better. I want to do a spoiler and non-spoiler section for those, if I do them. Because generic, I listened to another Doctor Who audio. It was great. It was amazing. I really like how they had the plot twist. Blah, blah, blah. Listen to it. That doesn't seem that appealing. But also, a lot of people don't want to be spoiled. So I did like the last one I did, or the book review. I did a spoiler and non-spoiler. Losing my voice. COVID stings. But Ro helped me put a little spoiler gift, my limited editing. I can put that in there. And I think it actually created a better format. But is that something anybody is actually interested in? Is mine just blurting out, hey, I like this book that I consumed, but you're not a book reader? Like, would you rather me go in an in-depth spoiler review just talking about the story so you can consume the story through me? Or do you want just enough that I hype you up that you actually get the book or listen to the audio drama? What is it that you would want from that top 10s? I have a lot of fun with these. They take a lot of work. Get something better for my throat. Oh, sorry. Do they interest you? My highlighting podcast, that's something I really enjoy doing. And I still had some Stargate ones I wanted to do, but I did feel like when the top 10s were slowing down and I started doing that, I had other podcasts that I wanted to highlight. And so is it a bummer when I'm just straight doing the same type of podcasts time after time? Or is it better when I'm like, ooh, here's a Stargate podcast, and here's a Star Wars podcast, and here's a Star Trek podcast. Would that be funner? Here's a video game podcast. Just interested. Is that content you're interesting? My unboxings. I am horrible at unboxings, but do you enjoy watching me just be gleeful about the thing and I'm barely showing you the camera? Or should I just keep that stuff to myself? I have some stuff to unbox. I do. So, curious. That's what I want to feedback. And so here's the last thing, and I'm probably going to do, I know when I'm going to do this, but I'm going to make a video at a certain point. I really want to push. I have never wanted to make this my job. YouTube is therapy. It is my way to react with the community, my way to just express myself, and I can be shouting in the wind. So I've never pushed for followers. But I'm really frustrated by the limitations that YouTube gives until you get to the point where you're monetized. I want to, when I'm sick and I'm not going to have videos, I want to be able to put a post about that. I can't put a text post up because I'm not monetized. If I appear on somebody else's channel, I want to post that on mine with a link as a bulletin point. I can't do that. If I want to live stream, like if I wanted to live stream this discussion, have chat and all that, I have to know the time and pick it 24 hours in advance. I'm nowhere near being monetized. I don't have the view time. I don't have the subscribers. The view time will come there eventually. It might take me a few years. But I'm actually going to start grinding for the subs. I'm going to start asking, can you guys please share me out? I don't care if the people that sub don't ever watch. There's sometimes like people do these sub drives, like they get close and all of a sudden all these, and they get like 500 extra. Why? Because like everybody loves jumping on and getting a channel. That's what I need help. I don't care if they're bots. I don't care what they are. I want the channel to grow to a point where I can get monetized, not because I think I'm going to make a dime off of this channel. Whether I plan on making a career or I'm making some commitment to you that if you do that, I'm going to have all this crazy. Life comes first. Family comes first. Work comes first. Faith comes first. All of that comes first. This is a hobby. But I just want to get to the point where I actually have the tools on this platform to do the stuff I want to do. And some of these basic things that maybe the live stream I get 24 hours, like that's, but not being able to do community posts, it seems like a very petty thing for YouTube to lock behind monetization. Maybe being able to control where commercials go or how many commercials, like all that seems to make sense. But maybe video description counts or the ability to put, I don't know, it just seems like so many other things that they could lock behind that. But the community tab, that's really... So I'm looking at trying to become more positive. And that's going to be changing what I cover. So one of my questions is, if I'm not liking something, do you want me to talk about it at all? I ranted about a lot of the things I don't like right now in this. And I like real talk discussion. But would you rather I just avoid that and talk about some of the other stuff that I'm learning that may not be the mainstream stuff that everybody's watching? You know, do you want me to talk about My Hero Academia for 45 minutes and do a more in-depth thing instead of ragging on Kenobi, you know, or the Batman or whatever, you know, or talk about some of the DC AMU movies instead of covering some of the actual DC or MCU movies. Like, what would you like? What would interest you? Because these are things that I would be okay talking about, but I don't know if there's an audience for it. Lastly, where I'm going to appear, I am going to be back on Scarif, doing some more Battlestar Galactica now that I'm getting over this. That's going to happen probably soon. Got to get with Ro about that. I am definitely going to be on the Escape Pod for a special Doctor Who thing. I believe they said somewhere around the end of August. So I'm looking forward to that. I definitely want to reach out, do another podcast with the Science Fictionary crew. Do another Pillars that they were talking about. So I'm looking forward to doing something with them. I've always enjoyed doing something with them. I would love, in an open invitation, I know the Lord Be With You podcast, we've talked a little bit about doing something together involving Sonic, and I'd really like to do a podcast with him. I got to figure out, you know, he's over in the UK, time zones and all that, and how we can make that work. But I'd love to just talk with him and do a podcast with him because I really like his podcast. You know, so there's a few people that I want to, but I would love to talk with some people about Sonic. I'm a super Sonic fan. Some people are outers. So anybody in the Red 5 network, if they want to do a podcast about Sonic, notify me. Same with Stargate. I love Stargate. I'm big. So Doctor Who, Stargate, Star Trek Voyager, or Sonic, like those are things that I don't think get enough love in the Red 5 network that I'm big into. So if you're wanting to do a podcast about that, contact me. We'll work out the timing, figure it out. But I'd love to do that. And I know once we've done all the Battlestar Galactica, Ro will probably want to do Space 99, Team 99 at some point because he's talked about that. So I'm going to be around. You're going to see me around. And I did some talk with Salty Nerd on Red versus Blue. I would love to do a follow-up. When he's actually binged the whole show, I would love to do another one with him, one of his Monday night live streams, and just discussing that because there's a lot of fun and there's just too much to cover. We were kind of just all over the place. But would love to do a follow-up to that, especially after Halo was kind of a letdown. So that's kind of what I do. What do you want to see from my channel? The one thing that's not going away is the podcast, because the podcast is what I enjoy. And when I initially started this channel, it was going to be me and my friend Kevin. I was building up to this. You know, he's the builder. He's got the backyard TARDIS. That's his TARDIS, not actually mine, but it's in his backyard. And he was, you know, he hadn't done modern Doctor Who. And I got him to that, and I was like, oh, we should have recorded this as a podcast. And then I was getting him into Stargate, and I'm like, you know what? We need to stop. We need to be recording this. Me as a longtime Stargate fan, you as somebody new who's just loving it and eating it up. And I thought, Backyard TARDIS. It's a great podcast name. I'm going to introduce you to stuff from the 90s that you had checked out on that you're going to love compared to the stuff today. And you're going to show me stuff from the 60s and 70s that I never watched. And we'll come together and we'll just enjoy it. And that was going to be what the show was going to be. Us just going through older shows. And that podcast has never taken off the ground. So the Backyard TARDIS Random Thoughts podcast was something I thought, well, the pandemic hit. And his work and having his 3 kids at different ages at home didn't allow for that to happen. And on the flip side, I had all the craziness that happened with my work, and it just wasn't a thing. And plus the pandemic and all that, we had a period where we weren't even meeting in person. How were we going to do that? We're not super techies, recording it over Zoom or whatever. I don't know. So we might be getting to a point where I might be able to start talking to Kevin again, maybe get that podcast going. But the Random Thoughts podcast has been just my way to get the foot out. Because I was talking about creating this podcast. I created the Twitter. I created the YouTube channel, all this stuff. And everybody was just telling me, the main advice all YouTubers told me was just start making content. When we look back at our content, we're like, don't even look at that. But if we didn't start, we wouldn't be where we are now. So that's been my thing. So I want to do this. And, many people wonder I'm such a shill for the Red 5 network. I'm not saying that people treat shill like it's a bad word. I love the Red 5 network. And so why aren't you a member? Because I don't feel like my quality has reached the level standard of the Red 5 network. But I'm working towards it. That's where I want to be. Is a podcast that I would feel comfortable saying I'm part of the Red 5 network. So help me get there. Help me grow. Give me advice. Give me feedback. That's mainly what I want to say is I've had a rough go of it lately. I've been in a very down, dark place. But I'm figuring out stuff that's making it better. I'm finding other stuff that's reinvigorating my nerddom. And I want to get back to creating and get back to that creative outlet. Especially as I'm getting better. Still here, I'm a little nasally, especially after talking for an hour. This is going to be my longest podcast yet, but please give me feedback. Sometimes I ask for feedback and I don't get a single comment, or it's like, great podcast. I'm like, but what about the things I asked about? Shorts, the different styles of videos, with the top 10s that I've done, how I do like the looking at the podcast reviews, the reviews of audiobooks and audio dramas and all that kind of stuff. What interests you? What's working? What's not working? What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Or what is something that's like, the way you're doing it, it's not very interesting. I like the subject. Like, I'd like to hear about these audio dramas, but the way you're reviewing them is just so generic and boring. Do it this way. Tell me, give me feedback. I want feedback, and I want to start, I have never asked people to share my content. I've never asked people to promote me, and I'm really bad about promoting it myself. Really, it's only the people who I'm out there screaming about their content that is watching my content. But I need to get past that. I need to actually ask for this because I want to get the channel to a point that is better. And I've never thought of it as a channel. I've never that, I thought, I'm just going to do this and the people come, they come. But I want some of the features. I want to unlock that. YouTube has a huge milestone to get to that. So that's my thing. That's my update. That's where I've been. That's what's going on. That's my thoughts on the state of everything. The state of my channel, the state of my life, the state of Doctor Who, MCU, DC, the state of Sonic, the state of just about Star Wars and everything. Hashtag Red 5 family. Looking forward to hearing all the podcasts. And one last thing, I haven't decided, but like I mentioned, if a show is not grabbing me, I'm just stopping it. I'm not going to get angry at a show. I don't know if I'm going to listen to podcasts about a show that I decide to stop. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to listen to a few of my main podcasts about Kenobi, but I'm probably not going to listen to 12 different Red 5 Networks podcasts, do a podcast about Kenobi every week for an episode I didn't watch. Um, so, and just like Book of Boba Fett, like I stopped watching Book of Boba Fett, and 2 episodes later, everyone was blowing up my DM and they were like, man, no, man, no, man, no, man, no. And it hooked me back in, and then I watched the rest of Boba Fett. So nothing has happened like that with episode 4 of Kenobi, but episode 5 or 6 of Kenobi could be just so outstanding that everybody blows me up, and then I'll go ahead and watch it. And then I'll listen to all your podcasts. But I'll probably pick like my favorite 3 of what I've been experiencing through your podcast. Watch that just as an update, but once again, like Moon Knight, I wasn't enjoying Moon Knight. I was listening to everybody reviewing Moon Knight, and the whole thing I said was a joke. It just became a burden, and I realized, if I had just stopped watching Moon Knight, stopped doing my shorts about him, and stopped listening to everybody's podcast on Moon Knight, I probably wouldn't have been so grumpy. And then that grumpiness probably wouldn't have spilled over into stuff like the Batman and just other stuff in general. And I wouldn't have felt so negative about creating content. And so just kind of realizing that and realizing I have so many podcasts I listen to, and they have so many great podcasts and so many great shows to watch and different things that sometimes you don't have to consume. Sometimes you don't. I never expect anybody to watch all of my content because I'm all over the place. Like, I get some fans that they start following me because they're like, oh man, he's a big Sega nerd. And then I start talking about Doctor Who, and they're like, nah. Or maybe they're from Britain, and they're like, oh yeah, I like Doctor Who. And then I'm talking about Star Trek or Stargate or something. Like, nah. No, or I'm talking about, and I feel like all the people who were in there for the sci-fi stuff, like, oh yeah, Star Wars, Doctor Who's kind of fringe for mine, or I'm not a Star Trek fan, or I never watched Star, but they're in general, and then superhero stuff and MCU, it's kind of the same family. A lot of the same people who watch Star Wars watch MCU, and so they're all kind of, oh yeah, and then I start talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, and they're like kids game, what's with. Yeah, I have no interest in that. And other people just find my adventures in locksmithing so much fun, and of course they have their own podcast, and I do a review of their podcast, and they totally fall in love with that. And I'm like, oh man, thanks. And so then they check out my channel, and they're like, oh, somebody tells them, oh, you definitely check out his adventures in locksmithing. They blew through that, and the rest of the stuff just doesn't even interest them. So I totally get that everybody isn't going to like everything I do, and I don't expect. I've never pushed for that, but I am going to start pushing for subscribers because I have a goal. I have a goal for some simple features that I want that YouTube has decided that you have to reach this high bar before they'll give you these simple things. Anyways, I am rambling once again. Back to positive. This will go out tomorrow. My longest podcast. Hope everybody has a good day, and I will catch you in the next video.